Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Catherine Harris. I am a program manager at the South Carolina Commission on Higher Education, and today is our final Palmetto Fellows Early Award Workshop. So today we are going to go over our new application process for the Palmetto Fellows. I will let you know this is being recorded. It will be placed on our high school counselor webpage with this slide deck at the end of this meeting. That is reliant on our communications team. So we will have it up just as soon as possible for you, but you will be able to locate it from our high school counselor webpage. So let's go ahead and get started because we have a lot of information to cover today. And so the first thing we're going to look at is our Palmetto Fellows 24-25 application timeline. So right now we currently have the early award open June 15th. We sent emails out June 18th, but at the last workshop, some of the attendees let us know that they, for whatever reason, they didn't receive the email until June 21st. So you should have an email in your inbox from our scholarships account, our scholarships at che.sc.gov email that includes the information for the class of 25 early award period. I'm not going to go through this step by step. It is on our high school counselor webpage as a PDF if you would need it. A couple of things I want to point out. The early award will close on April 15th, and you will notice a verbiage change on this. Application must be submitted online by student before 11:59 p.m. So I just want to clarify that the 11:59 p.m. deadline on April 15th and June 30th is the student submission deadline for their application. That is not the deadline for the high school counselor to have their portion submitted to CHE. You will have time afterwards to get that submitted, but that deadline is for the student. We will not take an application submission after 11:59 p.m. on April 15th for the early award or June 30th for the late award. Okay, so we are currently processing the early applications for the class of 25. I am happy to report we have almost 800 applications. And so this is the highest amount that we have ever had at CHE this early in the cycle. So that is exciting. We have started processing applications. We started processing the week of September 9th after we closed the late award for the class of 24. So those students will get an email notification from us once it's been processed, but their dashboard will also update, and that dashboard is going to update even earlier because we have a slight delay on the email. We will then load the students in our data system, and it will then show them in our Palmetto Fellows portal, which is what the colleges and universities in South Carolina log into to see who is eligible. We are going to keep our estimated processing time at 1 month while Tanya and I train ourselves on our new system and our new process. Our Palmetto Fellows Scholarship eligibility requirements, we have 2 sets of requirements. Our first set is our standard set. So the student needs to rank in the top 6% of their class, and they have 3 different years that they can meet that rank. It's either the end of 10th, 11th, or 12th. That is an or. Any one of those years will qualify the student as meeting class rank. They need a 1200 on the SAT or 25 on the ACT, and they need a 3.5 cumulative SC-UGP GPA. So that 3.5 SC-UGP GPA is going to depend on when they are applying. So early award is a final 11th grade GPA. Late award application is a final 12th grade GPA. So please keep that in mind. And then we have our alternative criteria. So this is for our students who don't meet class rank or, for example, are attending an institution that doesn't rank. So they would need a 1400 SAT or a 31 ACT and a 4.0 cumulative SC-UGP GPA. And then just as I explained, the early application requires a final 11th grade GPA. The late application requires a final 12th grade. For South Carolina State scholarships, we do super score on all required scores. That is applicable to both Palmetto Fellows and Life. So when we open our application cycle, we communicate that to you. So we do send an email to the individuals who have indicated to CHE that they are a Palmetto Fellows point of contact, but we will also send it out on the guidance on the South Carolina Department of Education School Counselor listserv. So this screen just shows you how to go about signing up for the listserv if you are not currently on that. If you are a Palmetto Fellows point of contact and you need to let us know that. We have added a new spot on our website. So when you go to the che.sc.gov website, in the top, you'll see subscribe to CHE updates via email. When you click that, it will bring you down here. You'll enter your name, your organization, your phone number, your email, and then you will check which one of these you need emails on. I would caution you not to check them all. I know we want all the info, but for example, we may have a memo that we send to high school counselors, financial aid offices, admissions officers. So if you mark all those, you're going to get that same memo 3 times. So just be cognizant of that. So let's go ahead and take a walk through our new digital application. We're going to show you screenshots of what the student sees, what you'll see, just to give you a better idea. The thought process is that you would be able to use this slide deck as a resource when you're processing. So on the June 18th or June 21st email, whenever you received it from us, this invitation was attached to it as a PDF. It is a fillable PDF. So you can enter the high school counselor name and the high school counselor email and save it before you send it to your students or print it and give it to them, however you want to do that. So this gives the application website or they can scan this QR code and it will take them to the application site to submit the early application. They do need to select early application fall 25 cohort. The cohort is always going to be their graduation year. So just a little piece of info. So this is what our application website looks like. This is where the student will go. They'll click start an application. And then they're going to select early Palmetto Fellows and then make sure they select the correct year. So they will enter all of, so that will create their account and then they're going to work through, hold on, sorry. This will create their account and this is where they will go back to check the status of their application through this process. So once they have created their account, it takes them to the student dashboard. So this is exactly what their student dashboard looks like. At the top, it says early Palmetto Fellows application. Then it says fall 25 cohort. And then on the left-hand side, this is our progression. So these are the items that we need to complete in order to get our application submitted. So all of the student demographic information our high school counselors entered before, like name, address, phone number, parent information, social security number, date of birth, the student is going to do that for you now when they do their account and when they start their application. So under student information, which is our very first thing in the application, they have 4 different sections that they need to submit. You will notice as you go through it. So they'll click on that bar, it'll drop down personal. It's going to pre-populate some of the information from when they created their account. So name, preferred name, date of birth, and then it's going to ask them gender, and then it will ask them if they are 18 years or older at the time they are completing the application. And so these are important because it's going to tie to parental consent. So if the student is under 18, they're going to need parental consent with their application. The next section, so you can see on the right, it shows they completed 505. Next section is mailing address. There's 4 items that are required. They will enter this information. And then we also have the option for student cell phone because in our new system, we have the ability to text them. So they can enter their cell phone and they can opt in for texting. And so that obviously can be about their application, but we could also utilize this like once they're in college regarding renewal requirements for their state scholarship. The third information is demographic. So the student will report their social security number, and then we also have their ethnicity there for them to report as well. Social security number is required because that is how we track student payments in our data system. And then the fourth item is, excuse me, sorry. Get that out of there. The fourth item is parental information. This is on every student's application. So we're just asking for parent or guardian information and an email address for the parent or guardian. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see the go to next step. On the right, you can see they have satisfied all of those requirements. So the next item is high school. So the cool thing about our new system is it has a high school school lookup feature. And so if your school has a SEEB code, that information will pre-populate. So they can just type in the name, and then they have the ability to select the school from this blue area, and it will automatically pre-populate all that information. Now, if you are a homeschool that doesn't have a SEEB code, then your students will have to manually enter that. And the one thing I want to tell you is they need to manually enter the option 3 homeschool association, not the name of their individual homeschool that their parents created, because that is not an approved homeschool association for state scholarships. And so we won't know, we won't be able to approve their application if they enter Smith Academy instead of entering the approved Title III homeschool association. Next item on the left, you'll see school counselor authorization and parental consents. So this student example I'm going to show you first is of a student who is under 18. And so based off their date of birth and the answer to that, are you under 18 question, the system has indicated that the student needs 2 requests, the school counselor and the parental consent. Every student will have to do the school counselor because that's how we get the supporting documentation from you that you previously mailed to us. But only students who are under 18 will get a parental consent. So from this screen, they're going to click the add request button, and then there will be a drop-down box that will populate. The options in the drop-down box are going to be they're only going to show what that student needs. So on this example, the student needed both, so they have both. So we're going to do parental consent first. So we're going to enter parental or parent or guardian information in email. And then it has a, do you waive your right to view information sent on your behalf? This will pre-populate to yes, because the students cannot see the information the parent provides or the information that the high school counselor provides. So they will need to consent to that in order to submit it. Then they'll hit send request. And so it's going to take them back to that request screen. So now we can see that we have made 1 parental request. It shows the email went to, shows the date we sent it. It shows that it is still pending. And then we can also see we have a school counselor authorization that is required. So they will hit add request again. For your students who are 18 or older, they will only need the high school counselor. So this is what it will reflect. So they'll just hit the add request, and then it's going to take us into the high school counselor. So this is where that invitation comes into play, and where it's very important that you have correct information on that invitation, because they will enter the information on this screen from that invitation. So school counselor's name and email, and then they will hit send request. And so now in the student's application on school counselor, you can see that we have sent both. They both show as pending. On the right, you will notice in the green box, they have the ability to delete or resend. So if you have any students who say, hey, I did my application and it says your information is still pending and you don't have the email, you can have the student log back into their dashboard and resend that email. Or let's say they mistype your email address, they can delete it and resubmit it right here. Just they would hit delete and then they would hit add a request and redo it. At the bottom of that screen, so you could notice on the left, we're at the very bottom that says submit application. At the bottom of the screen, there's a big green submit button. They need to hit submit. And then what it's going to do is all of those legal requirements that we had on paper that the student had to initial, this is where they're going to pop up. So they'll need to read through these. They'll need to check each box, go through all of them. They'll hit submit. At the bottom, it's going to give them the ability to give us access to talk to other people about their application. So this should be parent, guardian, aunt, uncle, whoever's helping them through this. This does not need to be the high school counselor. We are going to talk to you guys about your students' applications. They do not need to enter a high school counselor here. They will then check this box and then type in their name and their signature and then hit submit. And they will get a pop-up that says, we've received your application. When they hit okay, great, it's going to take them to their dashboard. And so on their dashboard, you can see that it says they're reviewing it. And then you can see on the left, a lot of the individual items are now condensed because the application has been submitted. So what happens after it's been submitted? So the student is going to get an email and it's going to say, thank you for submitting your application. They can click that blue button at any point in time to get back to their dashboard to check the status. If they go back to their dashboard to check their status, they will see that we are in the middle of reviewing their application. They will see possible checklist items here. If the student is under 18 at that time, the parent will also get an email and it's going to say, so when they do the parental consent, the parent will get an email and it will say, student name is applying for Palmetto Fellows and they need your assistance because they are under the age of 18. They will click this blue box to get a digital link that goes into the student's application for them to submit their consent. So they're going to report their first name, last name, and then they have to read through those legal requirements that we need them to consent for because their student is under 18. When they get to the bottom, they will need to check this box that they have read them and they agree, and then they will type their name, signature date, and hit submit. At that point, they will see a submitted document summary, and this just shows that they have provided consent on the student. So we don't need this. They don't need to print it. If they want, they can save it. But when the student goes back into their portal, it will show them that the parent has submitted their part. So high school counselor authorization. So once the student submits it, the high school counselor is now going to get an email. And so I know this is not ideal, but there are a couple key points I would point out. Scholarships at che.sc.gov is where all emails are going to come from. I would highly encourage you to add this as a contact, add it to your safe senders list. You might want to go a step further and create a rule and have all emails from this email address automatically move to like a CHE folder, just so you can find it easier in your email. So you're going to get an email when you open that email, but also in the subject, it's going to list the student's name and the Palmetto Fellow Scholarship. So when you get that, you'll know exactly what student you're doing. You'll click that submit button, and it is going to take you directly into that specific student's application. So it'll list the student's name at the top, just in case you get confused. You've done so many, you'll be able to see the student name at the top and that you're doing it for that student. And so the one thing I will tell you is this is a one-time click. So when you go to submit that student, you need to make sure that you have everything you need to submit. If something happens and you're missing a test score or something doesn't go right, shoot us an email at the scholarships email with the document and we can go in and manually add that. Okay. But it's just, you're not going to be able to go ahead and submit transcripts and then come back in later and submit test scores, because once you hit submit, that link is done. Okay. So let's work through this. So we have conditional logic in this form to try and make this easier for you guys. So the first question is going to say academic standing. How is this student meeting the GPA? If you enter that you are submitting the student during the early award, it's going to automatically say you need to provide that student's 11th grade GPA because that's the requirement for the early award. If you say the student is a late award applicant, which is not open right now, it will say the student has to have a 12th grade GPA. So it will designate based off this question. The next question is going to say, is this student using class rank in order to qualify? So the first thing I will tell you, if your student has a 1400 or higher or a 31 or higher on their test scores, do not worry about class rank for them. Don't even mess with class rank. Just submit their transcript and their test score. So if the student needs class rank to qualify, you will hit yes. And then I used the late award example here so you could see all 3 grades. But for the early award, it's only going to show you 10th and 11th. So then it's going to say which year are they meeting rank. And so from that drop-down box, you will pick that year. And so then this is what it'll look like. So we've said, yes, the student's meeting rank and the student is meeting rank with 10th grade. So then it will show you a 10th grade sophomore year class rank box. And so this is manual entry. You'll have to type this in, unfortunately. So the student was ranked 4th, your total class size for that year, and then what your top 6% are. If you answer no to question 2, the student doesn't need class rank. They have a high enough test score to meet without rank. Then it's going to skip all of the rank information and it's going to drop you down to test score. So you have entered yes. The student has the required test score. So tidbit about the early award period, early award is only for students who have already met the qualifications. We do not accept any pending applications during the early award period. So has the student met the required test score? We said yes. So then you will see a drop down and you're going to have 3 options. I will upload and submit the test score now, or the student will send ACT or send SAT. So if you select, I will upload or submit the score here. Actually, it populates on all of them. Regardless of which option you set, it's going to give you a score box here to upload a score report. Just because during the late award, if you have a student still testing, we may need one of your score reports if they're going to super score. So you will have a test score box here to add multiple test scores at that time. And so this is what it'll look like. So all of our uploads during this have to be in PDF format. So you'll be able to either add multiple, or we have, I think, 3 boxes that will load there. So if you're having a difficult time adding more to one, you can add 1 in each. If you report no, the student has not met the required test score and they will be sending it, it will still give you the box to send whatever score reports you have. And then under that is the manual entry field for you to tell us how that student is meeting the qualification. So if they have a SAT score, you will put it in there, or ACT score. It's just a double check for Tanya and I to make sure that we know what kind of score report we're looking for. And then you will go into high school counselor information. You will enter your name, your school email, your high school SEEB code, and phone number in case we need to get a hold of you about this. And then under that, you're going to have whatever boxes are required for the transcripts that are needed. So based off the way you answered the questions at the top, if it's the early award, you're going to automatically have an 11th grade transcript because that's required for GPA. But then if you reported the student was meeting 10th grade rank, then you'll have a box for 10th grade transcript. And then for late award, you're going to automatically have a 12th grade box for the 12th grade transcript. And then so you'll hit submit. And that will get you a submitted document summary. And so you don't have to save this, but if you want to save it or print it, you can do that. It's going to show the information you submitted for this student, and then it will show on the right the files that you uploaded, the file names, and the date that they were uploaded. So, what happens from that point in time? So, the student will get an email that says that the high school counselor submitted documentation for them. If the student then logs into their dashboard, they will select the early application. It'll show and review. They'll click on that. And so it will take them on into their application where they can then see their checklist that it's in review. And so I just want to talk about this for a minute because you guys may have gotten calls about this. And so this is what our current early award dashboard looks like. So we have added information here, but I don't think the students are seeing it, that says high school transcripts are manually reviewed and therefore will remain as outstanding until CHE staff review the documentation submitted. So that's the 30-day processing, right? So based on what you submit, parental consent, ACT score, high school counselor submission, those are going to automatically update as submitted, received. But the high school transcript is going to stay as a required item, but that doesn't mean you didn't submit it. It just means that because depending upon the situation, we could be asking for anywhere from 1 to 2 to 3 different transcripts. We have to manually review those. We could not use AI to review those because it's different years. So that has to stay as outstanding. And then once Tanya or I review it, it will be satisfied and then it will show as submitted. So that doesn't mean that you didn't submit it. And so that will be processed within that 30-day period. So once we've processed their application, their dashboard's going to update right away. They will get an email notification within an hour after that. So this is what their dashboard will look like. It says, congratulations. There's confetti and streamers. And then at the very bottom, there's instructions on how to submit their designation form. So this is now, it will preload in their dashboard and they will submit it from their dashboard. So they need to wait until they have finalized their school choice because they can only submit this once. If something happens and they change their mind, they will need to reach out to us at the scholarships email and we can get it corrected. But they're not going to be able to submit one for each school that they're considering. So they'll read this box. What they need to do is come over here on the left. They're going to click on college designation form and it will take them into the form. So this information is going to pre-populate from their application. They were early award, their name, their social, all of that will pre-populate. They will need to enter an email address just in case they have now changed their email. And this is unfortunately pretty common. So they will have the ability to enter their email. They can also enter their cell phone. It will show the school that will pre-populate, and then they will need to enter their graduation date. And so then that takes us to their college information. So they have multiple options down here. So if they select a 4-year college from the dropdown, it will then give them a list of eligible 4-year colleges. Once they make their selection, the verbiage here, the certification, is specific for our students for renewing at a 4-year. If they pick out of state from the drop down, it will then ask them to enter the school that they're attending out of state. And then it goes over the fact that they are a Palmetto Fellows and that they're declining right now. But if they ever want to come back in state, they can reapply through our reapplication form. So that information is specific to out-of-state students. Then we have other or gap year. So for our students that are taking a gap term or a gap year, this would be their selection. They can put in here like what they're doing. if they want. And then this certification information is specific to them on what they need to do when they're ready to enroll. And then our final option is our 2-year institution. And so when they select that, they will then get a list of eligible 2-year institutions that they can receive their Palmetto Fellows. And then the information under the student certification is specific to our students who are attending a 2-year institution and what they would need to do to then transfer to a 4-year to be eligible. Then they will type in their name, the date, and they will hit submit. This stays in their dashboard. So at any point in time, they can log back in their dashboard. They can click on it. They can see, it will show this form has been submitted. They will be able to see what they submitted. So this is what hopefully all of our students' dashboards will look like at the end of the year. So it's complete. Designation form is checked off. The congratulations notification will stay on there. Okay, so that takes us to school rank policy. So we check rank policies every 3 years. If you are a public institution and you are adhering to SCDE's ranking requirements, we do not need a ranking policy from you unless you do not rank. And so we have a number of public institutions who don't rank. So we would just need something from you that says you do not rank. For any of our independent high schools or homeschool associations, we check your website, your handbook, to try and update your date. If it's not out there, we will have to ask you for your rank policy, but we do this every 3 years just to make sure that you are ranking within the state regulations. So let's take a look at some sample rank reports. So this first one is a sample rank report from PowerSchool. And this is if you download the PDF version of the rank report from PowerSchool. So it will mark the high school name here and here. It will also show the class ranking for the grade level. And then it does not show the dates for the words date calculated, but it reports the date calculated right here in front of the school name. You will then have your list of students in rank order, student name, and GPA. So those are the requirements on the rank report. I cannot stress this enough. When you archive your rank reports at the end of the year, you need to spot check your rank reports to your transcripts and vice versa to make sure that the information on your transcripts and your rank report match. For example, the GPAs match, the class size matches, the student's class rank matches. And so this can be difficult because you can be in your office working really hard to archive this, and somebody in the front office moves a student or withdraws a student, and now all of a sudden your class size is different, and that can affect your class ranking. So just keep that in mind before you go into summer, whether you're on break or not. Make sure that your class rank reports and your transcripts, your data points match. The next example, so this is a PowerSchool Excel example. So if you save your PowerSchool report in Excel, this is what it will look like. You will notice I have highlighted 3 fields here at the top. Those fields are not on that PowerSchool Excel report. These are fields that you will need to add. And I know previously there was some direction that was given through the listserv that you could save the date calculated in the title name. And unfortunately, that is not sufficient. Saving the date calculated in the title name, when I load these into the archive or into the portal for high schools to use for life eligibility, they can't see the title name. And the date calculated is an auditable field for the colleges and universities under administration of the state scholarships. So the easiest thing would be to just throw this information in a header. That way you're not changing the document at all. You're just throwing a header on it. But this is something that you need to be cognizant of if you decide to save your PowerSchool in Excel format. This is an example for our private homeschools. Your rank report needs to have your school name at the top or be on your school letterhead. It needs to show the grade level being ranked, which it does right here at the top. And then it needs to show your date calculated. And this report shows it twice. And then it has student name, GPA, and rank. We do have a class rank report graphic that is on our high school counselor webpage. So we talked about this before. Please make sure you're verifying your data. Rank reports have to be finalized by June 15th each year. That's South Carolina Department of Education deadline. So you'll need to make sure that you have a correct final class rank report with matching transcripts by June 15th. And then on June 30th is the deadline to have your final 12th grade class rank report sent to CHE for life scholarship eligibility. So rank reports need to come in a PDF. So if you save it as an Excel, you will need to export it to a PDF and then email the PDF to our scholarships email. So for Palmetto Fellows, we use class rank for 10th and 11th grade too. So if you want to go ahead and send 10th, 11th, and 12th at the end of the year by June 30th, we will go ahead and archive those. So when you start getting application requests for high school counselor the next year, we will already have your class rank report. This is a sample public school transcript. So when we are looking at the transcript, we are going to be checking grade level up here. If it's a 12th grade transcript, it has to have a graduation date. All transcripts that are submitted to us have to say final. We will not request a work in progress transcript for any of our programs. It'll say the class there, and then the date, the rank information will be down on the right. This is a sample private or homeschool transcript. And so we would be looking for the same data points. We will not accept a date printed in terms of for a date calculated, because those can obviously vary, but it would need to have a signature. All South Carolina transcripts have to have a signature. And so you just need to make sure your data on your transcript matches your rank report. Okay, so let's talk about score reports. If you are using score stickers or score labels, whatever you want to call it, you will have to probably copy those and then scan them to a PDF. And so those will require a high school counselor initial or signature. If you are using the enriched summary, the same thing. It will need to reflect the student's name, and it will need to include the high school counselor's initials or signature. If you are using a score report from the portal, from the K-12 portal, either SAT or ACT, this is new this year. We will not require a high school counselor's signature or initial as long as it is coming from the K-12 portal. However, we will not accept a student score report. So they very clearly show if it's a student score report or high school counselor, or excuse me, a high school score report. This is SAT's old report. And so I'm sure you guys are probably aware when they went digital in March, they changed the score report. And so on the old score report on page 2, you could see multiple test sittings, score dates, and then it had the student name. We would absolutely take the second page of that for super scoring. Here is an ACT score report out of the K-12 portal. So you can very clearly see it says college or high school report over here on the right. If the student super scored the report, ACT will pull all the testing, the highest subjects for those, and populate it. So we would just need this. If the student didn't super score their report, but yet you are super scoring for them to get them qualifying, we would need a score report for each test application that we're pulling a subject from. And if it's coming from the K-12 portal, it will not require a signature or initial. And then, so this is a student score report. So please do not send us this. It very clearly says it's a student score report out of the student's portal. We will not accept this. If you are trying to super score ACT for your students and you have a question about rounding, the ACT super score calculator is really good. You can just drop in their highest subject scores and it will round it for you. One of our new changes this year, we no longer have a declination form with the new process because the student, once they've identified as, having met the requirements for Palmetto Fellows, the student is now initiating the application for you. So we did not do a declination form. We are going to take the fact that we don't have an application from the student as the student declining to apply. However, we will keep our eye on this. If this becomes an issue for you guys, I need you to let us know. We can revisit it and see if there's a better solution for that. The one thing we would recommend is that you probably are going to want to document that you counseled the student that they were eligible. If your district wants to take it a step further and create their own declination form, by all means, you can do that. But CHE would not need that because we're not collecting paper documents anymore. So we'll keep an eye on that. If it ends up being an issue, just let us know. As we said before, students will be notified 1 month after CHE receives the application and or school supporting documents. So that is an and or there because as we went through the application, you may have noticed that they are requesting the high school counselor authorization before they actually submit their application. And if for whatever reason that student leaves before they submit the application, you got the email and you may have already taken care of it, but we can't process an application that hasn't been submitted. And so actually in our new system, if the student doesn't, until the student submits the application, Tanya and I cannot see the documentation you submit until they have submitted that application for processing. So it's either going to be based off when the student, when the high school counselor submits supporting docs, or when the student submits the application, if they end up doing it in backwards order. The dashboard will automatically update. All emails will be sent from this email. Designation form, we went over this, but it's an online form. And so the student will access it directly from their dashboard. We have an August 31st deadline. That is not a drop dead deadline, but we do list August 31st because typically by that point in time, the fall tuition bill at their college or university is due. And so that Palmetto Fellows will not be on their financial aid award or their tuition bill if they have not done that designation form. So for Palmetto Fellows awards for the first year, it's up to $6,700. For years 2, 3, and 4, it automatically increases to $7,500. The Palmetto Fellows is a last dollar award, which means all other forms of financial aid will award before they award the Palmetto Fellows, but they can award the Palmetto Fellows up to the student's cost of attendance. Some important key points. The Palmetto Fellows does not require students enroll immediately after high school. It does allow students to utilize up to a gap year, which would be 1 full academic term. So what they would do is they would still submit their application during their senior year. It would get processed. And then when we went through that designation form, they would select gap year. And then it would give them the information they need on how to reapply when they're ready to re-enroll. So for the class of 25, they would need to enroll in college by fall of 26 in order to keep from forfeiting their Palmetto Fellows. If you have students that just want to take 1 term off, they would still submit for gap year, and then they would just do their reapplication process earlier when they're ready to enroll. We keep bullet 2 on here. It's not new, but we still get a lot of phone calls and emails. Students can attend an eligible South Carolina 2-year institution and receive their Palmetto Fellows. We have a list of eligible 2-year institutions on our website. And then the third bullet is really important. If you have any students who are early grads, which would mean they're graduating mid-year. So usually after the fall term, so December, January, they would need to have their application submitted to CHE prior to the graduation date that will go on their transcript. And so I know they don't always give you guys a lot of notice on this. So if they come into your office and say on January 4th, like we're done, we're not gonna come back for spring, we're gonna go ahead and graduate. And so you're gonna report their graduation date as January 7th, your first day of school, or the day before school, or whatever it is you calculate it. The student needs to do the student portion of the application and get that submitted to CHE before that January 7th. Whatever that date is, you're putting on the transcript as their graduation date. Doesn't mean the high school counselor has to have their portion done. It just means the student needs to have their part done to CHE before they graduate. If you have an early graduation checklist, I would highly encourage you to add state scholarships to that, and we'll go over that a little bit more towards the end of this. So how does the student keep their Palmetto Fellows? So once they're in college, they need a 3.0 cumulative institutional GPA. So this is at their home institution where they are enrolled in that degree program. They also need to earn 30 credit hours each academic year. So we do not include AP, IB, dual enrollment, or CLEP for Palmetto Fellows. So that means they need to enroll and earn 30 credit hours each academic year. If they are short, so at the end of the spring term every year, the financial aid office will review their eligibility and they will send the students an email and let them know if they are short, if they're short on GPA and or credit hours. If the student goes home for the summer, they can take credit hours at an institution near their home. They just need to verify with their home institution that they will receive those credit hours towards their degree program. And so that could be an elective credit hour, but they just need to accept it towards their degree program. However, if the student is short on GPA, because it is a cumulative institutional GPA, that student would need to take summer classes at their home institution in order to raise that GPA. So the credit hours can transfer, the grades cannot transfer. Hopefully you guys have heard enhancements in the news this year. And so our enhancements previously were called math and science enhancements, and then a lot of times they just got shortened to STEM. So our math and science enhancement, the student had to earn 14 credit hours in math or science by the end of their first academic year. And so we will accept AP, IB, dual enrollment, or CLEP hours for the 14 credit hours for Palmetto Fellows. We had 2 new majors added to enhancements this year. We had education and we had accounting. Accounting will be seen as one of the math or science majors. Education is not. So our education majors do not need to do the 14 credit hours. They need to be in an eligible major as identified by their institution to CHE. They will need to sign a contractual agreement. And so what that contractual agreement says is that the student will need to work 1 year for each year that they receive the enhancement in a South Carolina district in a certified position. So the student must be enrolled in an eligible major at their home institution before the start of year 2.
Come on in here. I got to tell.
Okay, hold on one second. If you could please mute yourselves. Thank you. And then students starting their second academic year at a 4-year institution can start receiving the additional $2,500 stipend. And so for our students that attended a 2-year institution, they would need to meet the enhancement requirements during year 1 of college enrollment, but they would not be eligible to start receiving enhancement funding until they are at a 4-year institution. So what do our scholarships look like with the enhancement? So for life, it's first year's $5,000. For years 2, 3, and 4, it will go up to $7,500 with the enhancement. For Palmetto Fellows, first year is up to $6,700. Years 2, 3, and 4 will increase up to $7,500. And then if the student gets the Palmetto Fellows with the enhancement, years 2, 3, and 4 would go up to $10,000. If you have any students with a documented disability, we highly encourage that they register with the Office of Disability Services. Every campus has this office. It's going to have a different name. So, Disability Services, Accessibility Services, the Student Success Center. And so, if they were on an IEP or a 504, they may be eligible for accommodations in college. And one of those accommodations can be a reduced course load. However, the reduced course load accommodation has to be in place at the beginning of the term. So this isn't something that they can wait and do when they get in trouble or when they have an issue. So they need to go ahead and do this at the beginning. If the student doesn't need the accommodation, they don't have to use the accommodation. However, we just talked about they have to earn 30 credit hours. If the student has an approved reduced course load, whatever that reduced course load is would replace the 30. So this could mean the difference between the student renewing their scholarship or losing their scholarship, but the student needs to have this in place at the beginning of the term. General state scholarship information. So none of our funding leaves the state of South Carolina. It doesn't matter what rumor you've heard, none of our funding leaves the state of South Carolina. However, we do participate in SREB's Academic Common Market. And so what this does is it allows students from South Carolina who have very specific majors that are not offered in South Carolina to be able to attend out-of-state institutions and not be charged the out-of-state tuition surcharge. So it does help, but it is not their scholarship funding. Okay, let's talk about transcripts real quick. Okay, so the transcript needs to say SCU GP GPA, total GPA, weighted GPA, unweighted GPA. Those are not applicable. It needs to very clearly show that it is calculating the SCU GP GPA. Probably the biggest thing that we had this year, all final transcripts have to be date calculated anywhere between 3 days prior to high school graduation and June 15th. And so we had a lot of transcripts this past year that were date calculated a week or so before high school graduation, and then they had to be redone. So the one thing I would say on this is that there's obviously multiple ways that you can calculate 3 days, right? So for example, if your graduation date is June 1st and you date calc on May 30th, that could be 3 days, even though it may only look like 2. So you may want to keep it within 2 just to make sure you don't have to do it again. And then the other thing I will tell you is final grades and ranking cannot include grades earned after the official graduation date of the school year. So summer grades earned after high school cannot be included in that calculation for the June 15th. All transcripts have to include a valid signature. If you're an independent, private, high school, or homeschool, and you have staffing changes, you would just need to send us a letter on letterhead indicating who the designated transcript signee is. For our public institutions, the person signing the transcript needs to be the name that's on the transcript. SCU GP GPA should be demonstrated on the transcript, has to have a date calculated. And then if you are a ranking institution, your rank has to be on your transcript if it's an official transcript. For our students, so this is SCU GP GPA. I'm going to show you life first, and then I'm going to show you Palmetto Fellows. So just a couple key points we want to point out here that are in the reg. Final high school GPA shall be based on the 4-year period of high school attendance, with the exception of Carnegie units that are earned prior to high school. So any coursework in middle school would be included, but we are looking at only 4 years of actual high school attendance. And then the regulation is repeated in Palmetto Fellows. They have to meet the scholarship requirements within the 4 years of completed high school coursework. If you have any transfer students who are transferring to your institution and your institution chooses to not accept previous completed high school coursework into your transcript, That is not a cumulative SCUGP GPA, and that transcript cannot be used for South Carolina scholarship purposes. So we do have a conversion spreadsheet that we can give to you to help you get an SCUGP GPA, but you can't rank the student using the conversion spreadsheet. So if you are choosing not to accumulate or articulate previous completed coursework into your transcript, you need to make sure that your ranking policy reflects that and that your families know that those students will not be eligible for class ranking. Class rank for the life scholarship is up to the top 30% of the graduating class. And for life, it could not be rounded up to the next whole number. However, for Palmetto Fellows, it's top 6% and it can be rounded up to the next whole number. So if you have your top 6% comes out to be 7.2 students, we would take 8 students. And if your life calculation comes out for top 30% to be 64.5 students, we would only take 64 students. In the event that you have a rank tie, we would need a tie letter from the high school or homeschool association determining that rank tie. We will archive those rank tie letters with your rank reports. And so if you have any questions about a rank tie, you can contact us. We can help you work through that, but we are unable to assist you in determining a student's rank. I touched on this earlier. So we do review rank policies. And so your rank policy has 4 points that it needs to include. It needs to be based off the SCUGP GPA. It needs to rank all academic classes at the end of the academic year. It needs to include the entire diploma seeking class when calculating rank. You cannot pull students out because they're going out of state. They are not a US citizen. It has to include your entire class. You can't exclude students because you know they won't qualify. And then rank and SCUGP have to be demonstrated on an official transcript. So if you are a ranking institution, the transcript you submit to CHE and the transcript you would submit to the eligible institution should both include rank, regardless of whether the student is qualifying with class rank. Rank policy. So we will check, it needs to be consistent. Your school profile needs to say that you rank, handbook, website. We will try and check this for you. Your students and your families need to know that you are ranking to update your 3-year period. So rank reports. So information that must be included on the rank report. And we kind of covered this when we looked at the samples, but it has to include all diploma seeking students in the class, has to list their SCUGP GPA, has to show their class rank, has to show the date calculated, and it obviously needs to include the school name and the grade level being ranked. Okay, and so hopefully everybody knows you don't have to send rank reports to the colleges or universities anymore. And so we had issued a previous memo in 2023. And so our intention is to re-update that memo and update that memo, resend it every year now. But if you need that memo, you can find it on our high school counselor webpage under memos. So they need to be submitted to CHE by June 30th each year. They must be in PDF format, and you will send them to our scholarships email. The June 30th deadline is because the colleges and universities need this rank report to be able to award life scholarships. And so as the students are trying to go to orientation and get into college, so that's why we have the June 30th deadline. General eligibility requirements for all of our funding programs. Student must be a U.S. citizen, legal permanent resident. They must also be a South Carolina resident. They cannot have any felony convictions with the exception of our LTAP program. They cannot have second or subsequent alcohol or drug related misdemeanors within the last academic year. They cannot be in default on any state or federal loans, and they must be enrolled in a degree seeking program at an eligible South Carolina institution. Okay, so earlier when I talked about if you had an early grad checklist, I said we talk about it later. This is the slide that I was actually referring to. So we have terminology that we use at CHE, and I know that some of you hate this terminology, and we are open to ideas. If you have better ideas for terminology that would make better sense to you, shoot me an email, let me know. We'll see if we can make this better for you guys. So the first one is early grad. So we define early graduate as a student who is graduating mid-year, not during the spring cohort. So this is what we talked about, which is usually after the fall term, like December or January. So they're leaving mid-year. So for the life scholarship, because those students are not there in the spring cohort to graduate, they won't have a final 12th grade class rank. So that means when they start looking at two of three criteria, if they are mid-year grads, rank is gone out of those criteria. So if that student is qualifying for life at a 4-year, they would need GPA and test score. Or if they're just going to life at a 2-year, it's just GPA. But they need to know that if they leave mid-year, that there's no final 12th grade class rank. For our Palmetto fellows that graduate mid-year, the student can qualify using class rank from either 10th or 11th grade. So they won't have a 12th grade class rank either, but Palmetto Fellows have 3 years to meet rank. So the only key point about the Palmetto Fellows is that they have to submit their application to CHE prior to that graduation date that shows on their transcript. And then the other population we consider graduating early as students who graduate an academic year or years early, like they are skipping a year or years. However, they are still going to graduate in the spring cohort of their new graduating year. So for life eligibility, that student would be ranked with their new graduating class because they're graduating in the spring. So they will have a final 12th grade class rank that they could potentially use to qualify for life. For Palmetto Fellows, this gets a little tricky because we give them multiple years, right? So, what we most commonly see in this scenario is students who skip 11th grade or they start 11th and then they slide into 12th, right? So, our early application period requires a final 11th grade GPA. So, right off the bat, if you have a student who skipped 11th grade, they cannot submit an early application because they don't have the required GPA. They would need to wait and submit a late application using a final 12th grade GPA. Now, when we get into rank, because the student has multiple years, they could graduate or they could qualify with 10th or 11th or 12th grade rank, depending upon which years they have skipped. Just real quick, you're going to get another email from us, us, about this within the next week or so. We are in the process of finalizing with our vendor high school counselor Palmetto Fellows app status reports. And so these would be sent to you monthly directly out of our system. So this is what it will look like. It will show you school name, student last name, first name, middle name, student date of birth, student email, student cell phone number. Application status is submitted. So you are only going to see students on this report who have actually submitted their applications. So you may have other students who have started their app, sent you a high school counselor authorization, but have not gone back in and submitted their application. So those students will not show on this list until they submit their application. Decision status is where we are with that. And so I've given you a little key here. So in review means it is still in process by Tanya and I, and it should be within that 1-month period. Conditional offer, that means we've processed the application. The student has been offered the scholarship. Means we are waiting for the designation form or they've done it. Denied means the student was ineligible and we've notified the student that they did not qualify for the application. Missing documents. Something is missing for this student. It will be reflected on the student's checklist. If something was needed from the high school counselor, the high school counselor would have gotten an email from us. So a missing doc does not automatically mean we need something from you. It could be we have everything from you, but the parental request is not done yet. So if you have students with missing doc, the student can log into their dashboard and see what exactly is needed. The next 4 columns on this report are the options that they have on the designation form. And so once the student submits their designation form, true will show under the option that they have submitted to us. And so that's just the way the system shows it. We're just trying to get you guys some information that may potentially help you and or your students as they close out their senior year. We talked about this. So if your students started your application or started an application, you got a high school counselorization or a high school counselor authorization form request, and they are not showing on this list that you get, when they log into the portal, it is blatantly obvious to them that they need to submit this application. So they will also be receiving emails and text messages from us, but it will just mean that they need to log back into the dashboard and hit that green submit button. A couple key points. I've referenced the high school counselor webpage repeatedly throughout this presentation. So on our website, to find it, you would hover over for institutions and educators. Drop down box is going to drop down and it's over here on the right. We are trying to make this like a one-stop resource for you guys. So if there's something that you use or continually reference and it's not on here, shoot us an email, let us know, we can get it on there. We've moved our college access programs here. SC Can Go is here, as well as this is where we will put this training in this recording. So over on the right, it'll say trainings and they will be listed at the top. We do have a new staff member. His name is Cosmos. He is on our website. He is available for your assistance. If you are in a hurry and you have a real quick off question and you're not sure, you don't have time to look it up and you want to just shoot us an email, but you may not have time for us to get back to you, try Cosmos. You will see him. He's on the high school counselor webpage. You just click this little ellipsis in the bottom right-hand corner. A box will pop up. You can type your information in, your question in there, and he will come back with an answer. If he comes back and says, if he doesn't know the answer, he will tell you that you need to communicate with one of us. If you don't have time to shoot one of us an email, then just enter another message follow-up with your name, your email, your phone number. And then when we get his log, we will know who to reach out to with that question. And then that will also help us, build his knowledge base. But he's also available to your students and families. If they have questions, he's there as well. He's on our scholarships and grants webpage. And then, let me go ahead and I'm going to stop the recording and then we're going to see if there are any